Hi there, it's Mare. I have a journal share. Just a quick flip through to check availability of this. I'll put the link to my Etsy shop in the description box, as well as anything that I've used in here as far as a digital or otherwise that I can remember. I will definitely put the credits in the description box as well. This is 8.5 approximately by 5 3/4. It is, of course, a chunky one, just like all of my other journals. Very vintage, grungy. I used this cabinet card here. Oh, wait, let me show you the spine real quick. Gotta lay it flat. There we go. Or put it up, I should say. Okay. Sometimes these get a little bit twisted, but have lots of charms, lots of beads and such on the spine. Just love the way that looks. I used a vintage cabinet card. I was going to use some different glazes, but I really liked the black and white, and it's got a little bit of the vintage, like almost a vintage photo color in the back. I don't know if it'll catch that or not. I did use a little white Tim Holtz Distress glaze on that, but there's no real texture to it. It just turned out really well, and look at that piece of furniture. Yikes, I just love that so much. And I put some little hinges on there. I used both vintage and new laces. I say that hesitantly because I don't think I have much of the new laces in here, but just to cover myself, I will say that. New and copied ephemera as well as original ephemera. I did a lot of stitching. There's black ticking fabric there, black and tan color. Did a lot of sewing. It is a fairly hard cover. What else? Put a little glass heart there with that piece of little pendant, connector pendant. Okay, let's open it up. Does not open all the way. It's pretty roughed up in here. There's bits of glue and grunge all in there. I love these bags. It is coffee dyed. Smells wonderful to me. But I add a little cinnamon, sometimes a little vanilla essential oil in there. This is one of the Tim Holtz cabinet cards. I also put, I believe that's deli paper. I might have done a little bit of waxing on that. This slides up, and it could be lifted this way and then this way. Very grungy. I did leave it. It's fairly like nicked up intentionally. I did leave a little section opening here if the picture needed to be replaced or, you know, covered up. And then when you close it, you have to lift this a little bit and turn to lock that in place. And then this bag here, I just have a piece of ephemera here, a big long card. There's places there to write in, and just a piece of it. This is a very old piece of stationery that there's cinnamon on it still and coffee dye. And that opens up like that, just for some extra writing. Yeah, we could put it this way. I think that's pretty. And I put a little tab there and a little bronze rose charm. You can flip it up. As you can see, a lot of sewing, a little burlap, some vintage doily here, just some cardboard there, and it'd be nice if you could see. Okay, there we go. Little rusted bell with a Tim Holtz pin there. So that closes like that. And then just some muslin for the tie. I doubled it. I just love that look. Created some ruffle and some vintage lace on all the edges. Well, a lot of the edges, I should say, not all of them. Okay, inside here is some Tim Holtz fabric. It is a padded envelope on top of the cardboard base. It's very sturdy. I used Tyvek in the spine, as I do always. Made a pocket here. Did some decoupage. There's a little bit of the medium on here with just just a little bit of a shine. Vintage lace here, little ticket here. I believe it's Vectoria Designs, but I will, again, put that in the description box. Made this out of some vintage ledger that is just so old it was crumbly, so I backed it on some parchment paper and inked it up, and some coffee staining there, and just a little booklet here. Just really wanted to use that paper. Here's a little copy of a vintage train car thing and a vintage envelope from the 1800s, authentic. Even the stamp, I love that writing. Oh, let me see if we can do the writing. Yeah, a little bit. And in here is just a Tim Holtz picture, a card here, and I just put a little coffee dyed paper on the back. I looked at her image on the cabinet card, and I thought, you know, it reminds me of a woman that came a long distance to be a part of her sister and brother-in-law's business at a new department store or general store or something like that. Just have these as a cutout, these little hinges here. Periodically you'll see bits of fabric or washi tape in the spines just for reinforcement. Used this frame here and this vintage photo, a copy of it, and backed it with some parchment paper cardstock. I left that as part of some Tim Holtz scrapbook paper there that can be covered or left open like that. That does hinge a little bit. You could put a picture there right on top of that, or add some gesso and right on top of that. Whoop, let me close this. I didn't do my little lock. Oops. Let me do the lock. There we go. Okay, some vintage, I used a lot of vintage ledger sheets and different things like that. Did some stamping, and there's a little cutout, a little fussy cut. Added some tape in the hinge here, and this added this little, I guess it's a money envelope that I've created some different levels, different pockets. There's just a piece of ephemera that I've used a little picture on. Sewing in bits and places here. This is one of those tin cabinet cards on metal like. I got that from one of Patty Lang's little sales. Have some little pieces of ephemera here, new ephemera. And I just added this vintage, it's from a vintage book, and I just loved how dainty it was. This is an original photo, postcard. Look at the gentleman's face there. And it is embossed, so it's raised. And little writing here, I'll let whoever gets this read that. This one is from an autographed book from 1934. Just a little poem. Did some stamping, and this is, this would be considered some of the newer lace that I have here. Nice olive color. A little rusted clip here with a little bronze key. Copy of a vintage check. Just a little decorated little stamping, some sewing here on this blue parchment paper. Another original piece of ledger here. Just love the colors. Little piece of rust there, which I really like the little detail there. Did some stamping and just on some craft cardstock. Little vintage key here, authentic key. And just a little fabric flip here. I made these top pieces as tucks. This is a vintage postcard here, unused, and just a piece of ephemera here. I put a little lace on the bottom. There we go, and the key, which can be untied and put anywhere in the journal. Some candle wicking, a piece of a scrap from another sale that I bought that from. A little tuck spot here, lots of sewing. I left a lot of the threads. Obviously, if the person doesn't like that look, they can trim those up. I put some charms here, little roses and such, and you can flip that up. And I put a couple more vintage postcards of like a general store here and a little old-fashioned restaurant there. remembered the last video. I'm like, I forgot what that was called. And then I had to drill it into my brain to remember. Somehow memory gets lost when you start your video. Piece of vintage ledger. I know this would be opened a lot, and it's you know, fairly dry, a little brittle, so I wanted to just reinforce that for longevity's sake. And then another piece of parchment. All right, I gotta be a little faster. Oh, I'm gonna put something in here. That is a little tuck. This is just from a master board that I had cut out some hearts. Little quote here, little vintage postcard. Isn't that something? I just love that. Oh, look at that old piano and chair. Anyway, that is put a lot of clusters in here that I had made. This is a vintage, I believe it's French. Vintage lace here with some sewing on this coffee dyed paper. Some more ledger. Very pretty print here that I've coffee dyed. Vintage, I believe it's 1896 is this envelope, and then I put inside of it here just a coffee dyed index card, put a little key charm on there and trimmed it out with some lace. I make these little tile things that I decoupage on with a charm, altered paper clip, a couple little things inside of the envelope, just a little cluster of fabric and a vintage button that flips up, and here's your area for writing and a piece of ephemera here. This also is a digital in the back, and I will put that in the description box. And here's just a bookmark here, and I made this multi-flip here with places to write. Here's just a coffee dyed tag here. In this pocket, another piece, another heart from that master board, a vintage piece of a piece of paper that's been avocado dyed, and a faux vintage piece of tape there. I made this one on a time card, a vintage, a vintage flash card. And I just made little tucks and put little things in it, and I thought it was super cute. Some of it is stationary, just with a little tuck space in it. Just another altered paper clip up here with a envelope charm on it. And that is the rest of the flash card. You could write on the bottom here, that would be cute. I just loved how the colors went together. Just a piece of ephemera here that I have inked up. Put this little dried rose bud in there and decorated that. Piece of, it's avocado dyed, a piece of vintage doily, or tablecloth I should say, and some avocado dyed cheesecloth there, making this little pocket. And another vintage postcard. This is I'm not sure if this ledger was vintage or not, but I like the look of it. Nice stamped journal on there. Curled the ends of the rusted paper clip and put another little charm there. Copy of a vintage receipt from 1920, a little fold-out file folder, a tag here, and this, I gotta believe Louise made these little haberdashery things, and I just love them. I love the color tones. I just added a little flip on this with this piece here, and just added a bunch of, like that's old, very old paper here, and just some coffee dyed parchment and things like that, areas to write in. Made this little belly band here. Some more coffee dyed and some more paper. I made this little charm here. It looks like resin, but it's UD ultra thick embossing enamel and different colors I put in there. A little bit of sparkle. Put a little envelope with a gold heart here, a little roll of paper and a little scroll. And I just really like how it turned out. Little blots of it on the back, but I didn't mind. I think it's cute. And I believe this is Stamperia, or whatever. A little, well, this is just a little tag. It says with love, and this is from the paper collection from Stamperia, and a little card in there. I just thought the colors really matched well, so I didn't mind using that and put a little tuck in there Don't have much of that left, so I thought, well, why not use it up, because it matches well. Little ruffle there. Made this little tuck spot, another cluster, did some embossing here and sewed it with it. A little Shakespeare quote here, some Tim Holtz ephemera here. This is a very vintage, from 1910, postcard, and it's got like 2 sides. So whoever gets this could definitely put some paper on there and just make it a little flip. I wanted to keep it as is. Little vintage tag here with some tickets. Well, a tag that says vintage. Some little tickets here. Like I said, the cluster, another cluster here, and I used this little word here from the Tim Holtz collection, I believe. And just a little ticket here. I love this little yellow and white. It's from a vintage little tablecloth, or doily, I should say. Vintage photo, original. Look at the clothes. Oh, love that. Well, I think we'll do it like that. Just on this half sheet, avocado dye. This I just set in there. It's a copy of a vintage receipt from 1901. I made this little, well, this was actually from a traveler's notebook piece, and I just did some decoupage on it and put a bunch of little ephemera in there, and this has a little ticket with some, this is an original receipt. Figure might as well start using it up and just giving it away to other people to enjoy. 1888 for other people to enjoy. Pork packers. It is brittle, but it's just a really great piece of ephemera. And there's, I believe, another little ticket stub thing back there, and it does fold out. Lots of area for writing or to put a special letter or something tucked in there, and it stays pretty flat. I put this on top, on a parchment paper on top of it, just to make this a little more sturdy here. I kept the edges flipped up, a little raggy, little quote down here, little just sticker piece on that, some more lace, vintage piece of ledger here, blank, and I just altered, well, I put this little paper clip with a charm and just altered a couple pieces, little pieces, cut them out, fussy cut them out, and put a little Tim Holtz doll on that. I believe I used distress crayon on that. Decorated this bag here, and this is an original postcard picture of this young lady. That is very pretty. I love her outfit. Little cluster, did a little collaging here, vintage button. Another cluster here. Just altered this little card here and put some ledger on there. Little tuck spot with this paper. Little piece of ephemera of a carriage. And a copy of a receipt from a carriage place. This has a tuck that I've just created with some coffee dyed paper. I used the last of my jiggly button trim here. Just made this tag very simple. Oh, I have something. There we go. Just made it very simple with some vintage lace that I have and a piece of, you know what I'm talking, seam binding. There we go. Vintage button there. And just put a little piece of paper on the back for writing. This, I believe, is the old design shop. And I'll definitely look that up. Made this pocket. It is a hardened material, a stiffened material. Made this little booklet here. And it's just got some vintage ledger in it, some coffee dyed papers, just for a little extra writing space. Some more vintage ledger here. Put this inside just as a extra. Vintage money order post office, I guess, page. This is a copy of a newspaper, vintage newspaper. And it's just fold out, one more writing space. It's very beautiful and fitting. Just made a handkerchief tuck with some sewing some more of that paper. That just slides in there. Another tuck that flips up here for writing, little cluster here. Another altered card. And a piece of ephemera here, old, new. And this is just one of those envelopes that actually cards fit in there perfectly, the size. Little window envelope that I altered. Little claim tickets, little piece of ephemera, and a little tuck I made down here. This is a vintage photograph. I put a vintage piece of ledger on some coffee dyed parchment paper, and I made this clip. And I didn't use UT, but I'm gonna play with my UT a little bit more and dip some flowers. But this is diamond glaze or glossy accents, I don't remember which. Some distress oxides and some ink there. This is a vintage nub. And I don't really know what the flat tip would be for. Somebody can comment about that, but I thought that was really, really neat looking. And it's just a double-sided clip that I have altered. And it just holds these papers on, can be moved anywhere. And this is another one of those carriage cards that can flip over this way and then flip over again. That I've backed with some paper. There is a little tuck here. I'll put a little something something in there for whoever gets it. Used this little ephemera as a frame here. And this is vintage, I believe it's a tablecloth, a little embroidered flower there. And just a Tim Holtz picture of this gentleman. And a piece of a vintage napkin here, and it's very pretty embroidery, I believe. Rusted a pin and put a little charm here. Another piece of vintage ledger there, yellow, with yellow parchment that I've done some little stenciling prior to coffee dyeing. Made a little pocket on the back here. And here's a copy of a piece of ephemera here. Lots of writing. And made this little card here. Some vintage ledger, 1898. And this is from, I believe it says 1901. It was so brittle, so I just glued it on here. And I just thought that's really, really cute. Lots of writing space here. Card and the ephemera. And on the very back has, I made this from a vintage book. Isn't that pretty? I love that fabric. Just a vintage book. It's very grungy. Put some sari silk as a closure. It's a little Ready Reckoner Foreman log book. It's very grunged up. And just some coffee dyed papers in there. I made a little tuck. This is an original piece of ledger from 1854 in there. And just a little journaling card back here in this tuck. And it's pretty plain. Did a little bit of sewing. A little bit like that. And that will go wrapped back up in here and in that back pocket. Okay, again, if you check availability, you can hit my Etsy shop link. It's Lilac Pages on Etsy. And I have a few more journals to do before the end of the year. I'm hoping to get to all three, but we'll see. I have a lot of family events that I'll be going to, but here's for the next one I'm only doing one Christmas journal this year, and that is it. That's the cover, and I'll be starting that this week. And I have a couple more on my list that I have to get to as far as themes. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and the like, thumbs up, and leave a comment. Whatever you can do, it's just really appreciated. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.